We don't know a lot, but it does appear that the SEC is moving quite quickly here with this subpoena already sent to Tesla. What does that tell us about the possible level of seriousness of this inquiry or information gathering, if you will?
Well, the inquiry is already pretty serious if they're issuing subpoenas, so that means that there is a formal investigation in place. And after the voluntary request, once there's a formal investigation, that's when you actually get the subpoenas. So the SEC is indeed acting very swiftly, as you said, and quickly here, and pursuing this investigation full force ahead, it appears.
What is the most problematic part of the tweet? Is it simply those two words, funding secured?
Well, there's a few different steps here of problems. So the funding secured, saying that you actually have funding secured when it's not, that's problematic because it's not true, which is fraud. And so that would be a fraudulent statement. There's another rule saying that you can't say you're going to make a tender offer if you don't indeed have the funding to do so or reasonably believe that you do. And so saying that was problematic. And then the blog indicating, that funding wasn't secured. And then the New York Times, that interview was also alarming, also in the fact that it appears that the $420 per share offer price was really arbitrary. It wasn't based on any kind of analysis. And then it was better karma for $420 rather than $419. So that was problematic. And then additionally, what was extremely alarming to me in that interview was that Elon Musk still doesn't seem to think that he did anything wrong and doesn't regret his tweets, which I think the SEC is going to look at that very seriously as somebody who's continuing to act in this reckless manner without any idea or concern about what he's done.
Now, what penalties could Musk himself face as well as the company face? Because as I understand it, each violation or each false statement to each person to whom it is made could count as a separate infraction.
You're exactly right there. Every time he made a false statement, that itself is a separate violation. And fraud carries with it not only civil penalties with the SEC, but there's also potential criminal wrongdoing with the DOJ. And then you, of course, already have the shareholder lawsuits here. And another impact that this could have with the SEC is if they do, in fact, bring an enforcement action against him and they do settle, they could also require admissions. And so admissions of guilt here, which would also have an effect in the shareholder and the criminal suits as well.
To each person to whom it is made, does that include multiple different shareholders, or is one statement one infraction, if you will?
Well, the one statement would be the infraction, but then the egregiousness and the impact of it is based on all of the various shareholders who were injured. And so here you have a very dramatic and extensive financial harm. I mean, we saw the wide swings with the share price, and so you have tons of money that was lost by the shorts. You have tons of money that was lost by those who bought shares, thinking that there was funding secured for taking this private, and it seems as though funding is very far from secured, and so you have them losing money. So there's each violation of the statements, but also the collective huge financial ramifications from this.
The subpoena also demands information from each of the board's 9 directors. Could any of them be liable?
Indeed, they could, and the company could be liable itself. And so we have here Elon Musk, who appears to have gone off on his personal, on his own personal way of doing this and saying all of these in his personal capacity, but he also is the CEO. And then once he makes these statements, then the board collectively also has fiduciary duties. And so I was a little surprised that I didn't see them make a very quick corrective disclosure under Reg FD as soon as these tweets came out to clear up the confusion and the chaos in the market. So they could also have some liability there. And then the SEC, it does not look at anything in a vacuum, so it's going to be looking into every everything, and including these communications. And so if they were aware of the tweet before it happened, or what was going on afterwards, if there was any intent that's there, you can see if there was anything untoward, whether they were trying, there was some effort to have an impact on the stock price, and there was an intent there, whether or not they reacted reasonably and responsibly. And so you do also have the board having these responsibilities and acting on behalf of the company, and could have liability itself, as well as Elon Musk. It is noteworthy that Chairman Clayton of the SEC has indicated that to him it is more important to go after the individual wrongdoer, but by no means do I think that excludes the possibility that the SEC could bring an action against the company as well as Elon Musk.
And when you say there could be criminal ramifications here, does that mean, you know, what could that mean for Elon Musk personally? I mean, could that mean jail time?
It's possible. That is a possibility. And with fraud comes the possibility of jail time as well as fines. And so fines are generally the means that the DOJ takes more often than jail time, but it is definitely a possibility. And here you're going to look at the egregiousness, any intent that comes forward through this investigation, and they have, you know, tweets to Snapchat to Facebook, and who knows all the different means of communication to try and gather that. So there's a lot of investigating that has to be done here. And another consideration, too, is, as I said, the SEC does not look at anything in a vacuum. So this opens up Tesla and everybody involved to extreme scrutiny. So they're not just going to be looking at this one issue in the tweet and the funding secured and where this was in the privatization, but they're also going to see what else they run across, and they have to follow the evidence wherever it takes them. And so if they run across whether there was some capital expenditures that would have required the stock price going up now, whether other people who knew the tweet was coming, if they knew it was coming, traded on that information. And so there's a vast investigation that's going to come from this.
Now, there's also reporting that the SEC had, before any of this happened, issued a subpoena to a Tesla part supplier, looking into whether they misled about their production problems. You know, how should we take then what's happening now into context of possible additional investigations?
Well, when it first broke that the SEC had already issued subpoenas, it seemed very likely that the SEC already had a pending investigation, because to initiate a formal investigation, it does take a little bit of time, and the SEC was able to move more swiftly here, and so swiftly that it led one to believe that they could very well have already had an investigation underway, because it is much easier to broaden the scope of an already existing investigation than it is to initiate another one and get it to the formal stage of a subpoena. So I think that that's probably very likely. There's been a lot of problematic statements that the SEC has been reported to be looking at, with projections by Tesla and even prior tweets and things by Elon Musk. So it's definitely likely that they're looking into a myriad of various things.